It started with a text from my mom. Family dinner. Just us. No excuses. I stared at the screen for a while. It had been months since I'd heard from her, or anyone in my family. Not after I moved out and finally set boundaries, so why now? Should have trusted my gut and ignored it? But a part of me, the foolish daughter who still wanted to believe her parents loved her the way they loved my siblings, replied, "I'll be there." That Sunday, I showed up at their suburban house, the one I helped pay off 5 years ago after Dad lost his job and they were weeks from foreclosure. I remember signing over part of my college savings and working doubles to make the mortgage. And yet, when I stepped into the house, I felt like a stranger. "Hey, sweetie," Mom said, her smile paper thin. Dad nodded but didn't get up. My younger brother Logan barely looked up from his phone. My sister Rachel, well, she just smirked like she already knew something I didn't. They had made my favorite casserole, set the table with the good china, even poured me a glass of my favorite red wine. Something was wrong. And then, halfway through dinner, Dad cleared his throat and said, "We wanted to talk about the will." I blinked. "What will?" Mom folded her hands on the table. "We've finalized everything. Just wanted to be transparent." And then Rachel, not Mom or Dad, but Rachel pulled out a piece of paper from her purse like she couldn't wait any longer. "Mom and Dad are leaving everything to Logan and me," she said, like she was announcing a weather report. "House, savings, cars, everything." I laughed at first. Honestly, I thought it was a sick joke. "Okay, what?" I looked at Mom. "You're serious?" Dad shrugged. "We just think it makes sense. Rachel's married with a family. Logan's still finding his path. And me." My voice cracked. "You're doing well," Mom said. "You don't need our help." I was stunned. Doing well. They meant the tiny apartment I was renting while working 2 jobs. The student loans I was still paying off because I never got a dime from them for college. The emergency fund I'd built after years of skipping vacations, birthday gifts, even new shoes. "I helped save this house," I whispered. "You remember that, right? When Rachel was in Europe and Logan was partying through community college, I was the one who showed up." "You're overreacting," Rachel said, rolling her eyes. Logan finally looked up. "Don't be dramatic." Dramatic? That word sliced through me like a knife. That was always their word for me. When I cried after being left out of family trips. When I begged for someone to come to my graduation. When I asked for help and was told to figure it out, I stood up. My hands were shaking. "So, you invited me here just to tell me I'm being erased?" "No one's erasing you," Mom said quickly. "You're just independent. We thought you'd understand." I looked around the table. Rachel was already on her phone. Logan was chewing like nothing had happened. My dad refused to meet my eyes. And for the first time in years, I saw them clearly. They didn't want me there. Not really, they just wanted me to accept it. Quietly I set my napkin down. "Thank you for dinner," I said, voice cold. And for the final confirmation that I was never really family to begin with. I walked out, and no one followed. That night, I sat in my car parked in front of my building for an hour. Not crying, I was too numb for that. I just stared at the dashboard and thought about every holiday I'd flown home for. Every time I loaned money. Every night I stayed on the phone talking Rachel through her breakups. Every resume I edited for Logan. Every time I covered for Dad when he was too embarrassed to admit we were broke. All of it had been the glue. But glue doesn't get a thank you. Glue gets used. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I didn't even call my boyfriend to tell him what happened. But by morning, I knew one thing. They made their decision. Now I would make mine. I thought we were finally reconnecting. When Mom called and said, "Come home this Sunday, your father and I have something important to share." I told my fiancé Ryan, maybe this is it. Maybe they're finally ready to treat me like family. Again, he raised an eyebrow. "After all these years, are you sure?" I nodded anyway. Because hope is a stubborn thing. I grew up the oldest of 3. My younger sister Callie was always the favorite, delicate, dreamy, the kind of girl who never had to lift a finger. My brother, Dean, the golden boy, quarterback, charming, a carbon copy of Dad. And me. I was the glue, the fixer, the one who babysat, cooked dinner when Mom was too tired, helped pay bills when Dad's job got shaky. By the time I was 17, I had 2 part-time jobs and a full ride to college. They said they were proud. But pride doesn't always look like love. That Sunday, I drove 2 hours to their place, Ryan offered to come, but I told him I needed to do this alone. When I walked in, Mom greeted me with her usual lukewarm hug. Dad barely looked up from his scotch. Callie was sipping wine like we were at some fancy brunch. Dean was already half asleep on the couch, wearing a designer hoodie I knew he didn't pay for. Something felt off. No food, no candles, no music, just for people in a silent living room, waiting. Take a seat, Mom said. I sat, and that's when Dad cleared his throat and said, "We've finalized the will." I blinked. What? The estate, the house, the lake property. We've decided how it'll all be divided. Just wanted to tell you in person. I looked from one smug face to the next. Callie wouldn't meet my eyes. Dean smirked. Then Dad said it. We're leaving everything to your siblings. Callie gets the house. Dean gets the investments. You're doing fine on your own. At first, I thought I misheard, or that it was a test. I laughed. A small, bitter laugh. Wait, are you serious? Mom sipped her tea. Sweetheart, you've always been the independent one. Callie's been struggling with her boutique, and Dean, well, he's got some debts. I felt my heart crack. Are you kidding me? I gave up my first internship to take care of Callie when she had that surgery. I paid Dean's DUI fine. I covered 3 months of your mortgage when Dad lost his job. Dad's face hardened. That was years ago, and you were happy to help. No, I was scared you'd lose the house. I was begging you to see me. I stood up. My legs were trembling. So this is what this dinner was. You brought me here to say, thanks for your service, soldier, now get lost. Mom flinched. It's not like that. Then what's it like, Mom? Because it feels a hell of a lot like abandonment. Dean yawned. You always make everything dramatic. Callie chimed in with that syrupy voice she uses when she wants to sound sweet. You've got a great job, Nora, a fiance, a nice apartment. We just figured you didn't need anything. That did it. You figured I didn't need family, either. I walked out. I didn't cry. Not yet. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. It was Ryan. You okay? I texted back. They left me nothing. A few seconds later, want me to come get you? Another pause. Then I wrote, no, I'm driving back, but something's changed. Forever. That night, as I stared at the ceiling, I didn't feel sad. I felt something heavier final. Because something inside me broke that night, but something else, something stronger, started to rise. I didn't talk to my parents for 2 months after that dinner. Not out of anger. Not even to punish them. I just stopped hoping. It was like someone had turned off a switch in my heart. Ryan asked me one night, do you ever think they'll realize what they did? I shrugged. I don't think they care enough to realize. He held me tighter. Then maybe it's time you stop carrying their names in your mouth like they mean something. That hit me hard. Because I had always tried to earn love. Always tried to deserve it. But what happens when your own family treats your worth like a technicality? I threw myself into work. I'm a senior architect at a firm that builds luxury properties, vacation homes, estates, lakeside retreats. Irony, right? I help strangers design legacies while mine was written out of my own. Then one day, I got a call from a client, an elderly woman named Evelyn Carmichael. Quiet voice, old money. She wanted to build something unique. Not for me, she said. For someone I care about. Someone who's been forgotten. I flew out to meet her on a misty Thursday morning. Her property was surreal. 4 acres of forest, a wide glassy lake, and a cliff that caught the sunrise just right. I remember standing at the edge and thinking, if heaven had a back porch, it'd look like this. Evelyn showed me sketches she'd drawn herself, a blend of modern and cozy. Big windows, bookshelves, sunlight everywhere. It's for my granddaughter, she said, but she doesn't know it yet. Oh, I asked, curious. She smiled, a little sadly. She's always been the strong one. People take advantage of that, you know. They think if you're strong, you don't need kindness. My chest tightened. I knew that pain too well. Over the next 6 months, I worked closely with Evelyn. She was sharp, warm, and had this way of asking questions that made you feel like a real person, not just a service provider. One afternoon, while going over tile samples, she looked at me and said, "Tell me something no one else knows about you." I froze. Then, without even meaning to, I told her everything. The will, the dinner, the silence that followed. When I finished, she poured us both tea and said, That house we're building, it's not just for my granddaughter. It's for every girl who was told to be quiet, to be less, and it needs someone like you to bring it to life." That night, I cried in the hotel bathroom, not because I was sad, but because for the first time in months, no, years, someone saw me and didn't flinch. A week before the project was set to finish, I got another call. This time, from Mom. I didn't answer. Then came the text, "Emergency. Callie in trouble. Please come." I stared at it for 5 minutes before finally replying, "What happened?" No response, just another text, "We need you, please." I drove back to my hometown the next day, and when I walked into that same house where they'd disinherited me, it felt like walking into a set. Like everything was staged. Mom was crying on the couch, Dad pacing, Callie red-eyed wrapped in a blanket. Dean wasn't there. "What's going on?" I asked. Callie looked up, trembling. "The boutique, it burned down. Insurance is refusing to cover it. We're ruined." I blinked. "That's awful, but why call me?" Dad cleared his throat. "Because your sister needs help." There it was again. That word, helped, always me. Always expected to save the day, even after they left me nothing. Even after they carved my name out of their will. And that's when it hit me. They didn't need a daughter. They needed a backup plan. I stood quietly for a second, then said, "I'm sorry for what happened, but I can't help you." Mom gasped. "What do you mean you can't?" Dad snapped, "Don't be cruel, Nora." And I looked him dead in the eye. "Cruel? You wrote me out of your lives like I was an error to erase. Now you want my help. Why?" Callie sobbed harder. "Nora, please. I don't have anywhere else to turn." And I almost cracked. Almost, but then I remembered Evelyn's voice in my head. "They think if you're strong, you don't need kindness." So I left, got in my car, and never looked back. But as I drove, I couldn't help but think, this isn't over, because some betrayals aren't the end. They're the beginning of something bigger, and mine was just about to begin. I thought the worst was over. But a week after I returned to New York, I got a message from an unknown number. It just said, "We need to talk. You've caused enough damage." I didn't respond. I blocked it. But the next day, I got a knock on my door. It was my building manager. "There's someone downstairs. Says he's your cousin. Real pushy. Should I call security?" I peeked out the window. It was Josh, my cousin, on Mom's side. The same cousin who once begged me for tuition money when no one else helped him. I hadn't seen him in 5 years. I nodded. "Let him up." When Josh stepped into my apartment, he looked like he had aged 20 years in 5. He didn't waste time. "They're saying you're threatening to sue or go public." I crossed my arms. "I didn't threaten, I warned. They made their move. Now I make mine." "Come on, Lila," he sighed. "It's just money. Is it really worth tearing the family apart?" I smiled, bitterly. They already tore it apart. I just finally noticed. He sat down like the weight of it was crushing him. "They're scared. Dad's talking about moving assets offshore. Everyone thinks you're going to blow it all up." I stared at him, then said softly, "I should." He blinked. "You mean? You really would?" I leaned in. "They stole from me, lied to me, played me, and then flaunted it. What do you think I'm going to do? Bake them cookies?" Josh stood up, flustered. "This is going to ruin everything." "No," I said. "This is going to reveal everything." He left without another word. The next week I called an estate attorney, a real bulldog, former prosecutor. Her name was Candace, and she didn't believe in mercy. We went through the trust documents, the will, the property, transfers, everything, and it was all there, clear as daylight. In the last 5 years, my parents had begun moving almost everything into a private family trust with my siblings as trustees. My name wasn't even on the emergency contact sheet. Worse, some of the funds in that trust had come directly from the business AITA-founded. My dad had borrowed over $250,000 from me during my startup days. He signed a note. I still had it, but he never paid me back. Candace leaned back, grinning. "We've got a case. And it's not just probate fraud, it's civil theft. They owe you. And then some." I was shaking, with fear, with adrenaline, with rage. We filed notice of intent to sue. I sent the letter to my parents' attorney, and CC'd my parents, my siblings, and the trust firm. The storm came instantly. My mother called me 14 times in a row. My brother texted, "You're really going to destroy your own family for some money?" And my sister, she posted a cryptic story on Instagram. You can't put a price on loyalty, but some people sure try. My hands trembled with fury as I typed out my post. No names. Just truth. When the people who raised you lie, steal, and erase you from the life you helped build. Speaking out isn't betrayal, it's survival. It went viral. Friends messaged me nonstop. Strangers reposted it. Then someone forwarded me a screenshot from a private Facebook group of moms in my hometown. Apparently my mom had been posting too. She'd said I was confused, mentally unstable, and twisting the truth. She called my lawsuit a personal vendetta from a bitter daughter who never felt special. Candace laughed when she saw it. She's digging her own grave. 2 weeks later, my brother Evan showed up in New York. He didn't call ahead, just banged on my door at 7 a.m. I opened the door, and he pushed past me into the apartment like it was his. "You've made your point," he said coldly. "They're humiliated. Happy now." I stared at him, stunned. "That's what you think this is about? Humiliation?" He threw a folder on the table. "That's the proposal. We're offering a settlement. Take the money and end it." I didn't touch the folder. "You mean hush money? Call it what you want. It's a generous offer. Way more than what you would have gotten if you stayed quiet." I opened the folder. It was $300. Oh, no apology. No admission of wrongdoing. Just a check with a contract that said, I agreed not to speak publicly again. I closed the folder and pushed it back toward him. "Tell Mom and Dad," I said calmly. "I'll see them in court." Evan scoffed. "You're insane." "No," I said, smiling for the first time in days. "I'm awake." He stormed out. The court date was set. My parents tried to delay it. They tried to intimidate my lawyer. They even tried to smear me to distant relatives, but none of it worked. Because this time, I had receipts, text messages, email trails, voice memos, bank statements. And I wasn't alone. 2 cousins quietly messaged me, saying they'd also been cut out after helping with the family business. One of them gave us documents my father had tried to hide. It turned out I wasn't the first. He betrayed, just the first to say enough and mean it. I stood in front of the fireplace that night, the logs crackling, a glass of wine in my hand, and my phone buzzing with messages I no longer cared to read. I'd posted the truth. Every last bit of it. The story of how my parents gathered me like a prop, only to reveal that their legacy skipped over me as if I never existed, and the internet. It listened. My video had hit over 2 million views in less than a week. The comments. A tidal wave of empathy, fury, and solidarity. Strangers from across the country, some even overseas, shared their own stories of being overlooked, scapegoated, or betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect them. People saw me, they heard me, even if my own family never had. Then came the calls. First from people I hadn't spoken to in years, cousins who'd always kept their distance suddenly wanted to reconnect. Former classmates who used to laugh when my parents forgot my birthday were now reposting my video with captions like, "She was always the strong one." Right then, my sister Lauren sent a message. "Just saw the video. You didn't have to go that far. You've really hurt Mom and Dad." I didn't reply. Instead, I rewatched a specific clip from my video, the one where I said, "My silence made me easy to erase. So now, I'm making noise." That line had been stitched, remixed, quoted in podcasts, tweets, even TikTok, voiceovers.noise. I was finally making noise. The letter came in a thick envelope, hand-delivered, a revised will. From my parents' lawyer. I stared at it for a long time, almost amused. It redivided the estate. This time, my name was included. Equal shares for me, Lauren, and Ryan. A separate paragraph apologized for any previous misunderstanding and pain caused. It wasn't about love, it was about optics. I knew that. The internet had shamed them into damage control. But I didn't need their money anymore. Not like that, so I called their lawyer and said, "Kindly let them know I won't be accepting any part of the estate. Let it go to Lauren and Ryan, just like they originally wanted." He paused. "Are you certain, Ms. Callahan? It's a significant amount." "I'm certain. I've found peace, and that's something they could never afford." And then, I donated $25,000 of my own money to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students who'd been cut off or abandoned by their families. I named it the Invisible Ones Fund. I wasn't just moving on, I was building something better. A few months later, I found myself in Santa Fe, watching the sunset spill across the red rocks like liquid gold. I'd been traveling, teaching creative writing workshops, visiting schools, speaking on podcasts. Every new place added a brick to the new foundation I was building, one made of truth, boundaries, and freedom. One evening, I got a message from a young woman in Wisconsin. "Your story gave me the courage to walk away from my toxic parents. I finally moved out. Thank you for telling your truth." I stared at that message for a while. Tears welled up, the kind that don't sting, but soothe. Because that was it. That was the ending I never saw coming. Not revenge, not an apology, not even justice, just this, healing, visibility, and the power to choose my own ending. The last time I saw my parents was by accident at a local bookstore during a signing event for my newly published memoir, The Unchosen Daughter. I hadn't known they'd be in town, but I saw them in the back of the line, holding copies of my book they hadn't paid for, probably gifts from someone else. They didn't approach, I didn't wave, but I saw something in my mother's eyes as she looked at the long line of people waiting to meet me. Not regret, not pride. Confusion. As if she was still trying to understand how the child she dismissed could rise anyway. I finished signing the last copy and left through the back door. Stepping into a warm summer evening, a little girl and her mother passed by, holding hands, giggling, and for the first time in my life, I didn't ache for what I didn't get, because I had finally given it to myself.